Welcome to the Brush Lounge. We are back today with another episode, and we're talking to Gwen Breen, who is our licensed professional counselor and psychotherapist. And Evie has a topic that is dear to her heart. It's dear to all of ours, and we're going to jump right into that conversation because that's what we promised you in the episode prior to this one. So Evie, take it away.
Yes. So
I'm Monique Walker.
And I'm Evie Barron Hernandez.
And Gwen Breen.
Yes. So take the conversation. Evie, take us where you want us to go.
So today we are going to be talking about weight loss and weight gain and issues with people who have dealt with weight issues. For me personally, I've dealt with weight issues my whole entire life. So I wanted to bring that to the lounge and talk to you about it because, as we were discussing earlier, I never thought to go to a therapist about my weight issues ever in my life. And I was thinking, gosh, I wish I would have thought of that earlier. And when we were talking on the previous episode, I saw that people do come to you to help resolve some of those issues and get help with getting their weight under control.
Right.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit more and identify what it is you do to help and help people identify when they should go get help.
A lot of people deal with weight, body image, food, eating issues, from restricting too much and not eating enough so that they can get too thin, sometimes grotesquely thin. And then we have people who use food for emotional eating, for dealing with their emotional distress, and they don't connect the two. They don't recognize what they're doing. So there's a whole continuum of what we call eating disorders, okay? And yes, there are diagnostic criteria for most of what's on that continuum, but then there's some that I think the psychiatric community just doesn't recognize as much, but it's still important to people, right? And it still brings suffering and pain, and people are seeking help, wanting to get help for their, what we call poor relationship with food, or inappropriate relationship with food, whatever that may be. So I was wondering, Evie, do you mind sharing your story? Because I think when people can hear a story, they really can understand, first of all, that they're not the only ones dealing with it, but also they understand and can relate to some of the aspects, even if it's not all of it. So tell us a little bit about what you've dealt with over the years.
Well, it's interesting because I have always had a weight issue as far as I can remember. When you look at my baby pictures, I was a chubby baby, I was a chubby child, I was a chubby teenager, and chubby young adult. So I did start losing weight as a teenager. So I started that yo-yo up and down early on in life. When I hit the age of, I think it was 42 or 43, my doctor, who is also my mother's doctor, my primary care physician, who I absolutely adore, her name is Dr. Yana, she told me I was pushing almost 300 pounds. And she told me that my blood levels were all out of control. I had high blood pressure, cholesterol was high, blood sugars were high, everything was just bad. And she said if I didn't get it under control, she was going to put me on the same medication my mom was on, which was this diabetic medication, because my mother was a diabetic, just like my grandmother, just like my great-grandmother. So this was, yeah. So, and we're Hispanic, so, very common among the Hispanic community. And so at that point, I told her, no, I'm not going to take that medication. I don't know why I refused the medication. I was just like, I'm not doing it, And so I decided that I was going to figure out a way to avoid that. And so I started reading up on how to be healthy. And there was a book that came my way that was called Wheat Belly. It was real popular at the time.
David Perlmutter.
Yeah. And that book really spoke to me. And I remember first reading that book and thinking, there is just no way I'm ever giving up tortillas. Ever. Because it's all about giving up, you know,
Something, huh?
bread and pastas, and not all, you know. And by the end of it, I was open, and it was a total gradual process. And I still, you know, indulge every once in a while, you know, when my mom makes homemade tortillas. So, but it's been a journey, and now, so I educated myself first, and I learned how to eat within reason. So I had no clue. I was probably consuming 3,000 to 5,000 calories a day. I don't know. I was just eating. And then once I figured out, I joined Weight Watchers, and I figured out, oh my God, this is how I'm supposed to be eating. You know, I'm eating way too much. Once I got my eating under control, then I felt better, like I could exercise. Then I got on an exercise, joined an exercise group and started exercising, which was a whole different story, but started exercising. And then eventually it just became, I just kept on that journey. My lifestyle.
Yeah, so for you, it was getting some really good information.
Yes.
Right. How much of it do you feel like was tied into anything going on with you emotionally? Like, how did you relate to food growing up?
Food to me, I always relate food back to my mom for some reason, because my mom was always such a good cook. And it was very comforting. That's how I relate to food, always, and still, it's still very comforting to me. So it's very traditional. There's always tradition behind it, and I even sense me being that way with my child, like almost wanting to reward him or pacify him with food, and I have to really watch myself with that. So that's.
So it's a good point that you bring up. There's a lot of family patterns that go on with people who nurture with food or show love with food, or we have a family gathering and there's food everywhere. And I struggle with that too, just watching what I serve and what I share with people, because we tend to just naturally go to the go-tos that have been around, you know, especially like during the holidays, the pies and the cakes and all the different things. So that's good to bring up. One thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is there's a lot that goes on in our brain when we eat food. And there are certain foods that activate the reward center in our brain very similarly to taking cocaine or other types of drugs, drinking alcohol, etc. We have a part of our brain that's the reward center, and when we eat certain foods, especially things that are high in carbohydrates, that give us a little bit of energy, it tends to reward that. What happens though down here is where our struggle is that we activate the endocrine system and insulin is produced. And then when that fades, then we start craving more of those carbohydrates. And unknowingly, our body gets into a pattern of wanting more and more and more carbohydrates. And so you see a lot of these eating plans, diets, whatever, out there these days talking about reducing your carbohydrates. And I'm not a big fan of cutting any food group out of your eating plan, but reducing that helps reduce that insulin, reduce that inflammation, and reduce those cravings, okay? And so that's why a lot of people are finding that eating a lower carbohydrate or a no grain kind of eating can really help with that. There are other ways to get around it too, without deleting an entire food group that has a lot of nutrients in it. But it's just really interesting that it's not just all I have something going on in my head in my relationship with food. There are things happening in our body that we are not aware of, that we don't have control over. And until we get information and until we learn more about what's going on, it's difficult for us to step in and do things differently. And so same with exercise, you know, and what we do when we prepare our food. So there's a lot of information. We could probably do several segments just on things like this, but there's so much. And it's interesting because in your case, it sounds like you had a pattern of nurturing in your family through food. And then, but you also had a lot of poor information about what healthy eating is, or just maybe no interest in knowing that there was such a thing as healthy eating because, man, Mexican food.
Yeah.
And you trust your family,
and
and
you trust your family.
Your mom or dad is feeding you. So if that's what they had, and then you know, you said this was generational.
Yeah.
They didn't know either.
Yeah.
Right.
My grandmother was she was a pastry chef. She made the best.
I like that.
The best pastries.
Oh my God.
You know, I mean, it was crazy, crazy.
Yeah. And we love those kinds of foods, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to delete them from your diet. I think what you have to do is realize they're for special occasions.
And in the African American community, Evie, it was similar. You know, we see a lot of diabetes issues and weight issues as well. But for us, a woman with curves and you know all that kind of thing, that was something enduring about that. You know what I'm saying? So we never looked at it as, you know, we're harming.
Harmful to your body.
Yeah, we're harming. If it didn't hurt me, then it was okay for me. We never knew that a lot of the things that we were eating were not
Right.
good for us.
But I think what we're finding is that as you're eating this way, your insulin is gradually rising, and then later in life you develop diabetes, and then you develop other things such as inflammation, inflammatory diseases, and then Alzheimer's and various things. I mean, just slowly, just gradually gets to be more of a time bomb for people. And that's why we're trying to get out as much education as possible. Not just so you can fit into a size 8 dress, but it's just, you know, or 6 for some people, I don't know. But it's more about really taking care of your long-term health. This is something I preach all the time. Long-term health. Don't worry about what size you are right now. And how you look, and I need a little slimmer tummy or something. Although waist to height ratio is really important, we'll talk about it another time. But I think the bigger thing is what's going to happen to you over the long term. So especially with women who restrict, or men. Men have difficulties with this too, not eating proper nutrition, and they're trying to be a certain size, look a certain way, get the girl, get the guy, whatever, and then they're not thinking about how does this impact long-term health. So all of these, and I'm going to call them fad diets, all the fad diets that you see, I don't want to mention them, but you see them all over Facebook, and you know, I'm eating this way and I've dropped 20 pounds, and I'm eating this way and I've lost 40, and I'm eating, you know, that's great for right now. But all of those over the long term have significant consequences to them. And I keep going back to what I've learned and what I find to be true and what I find to be helpful in my own life. Eat real food. If God didn't make it, don't eat it. You know, so if it came from the ground, if it grew on a tree, you know, eat it.
Yeah, and you know, just like in the situation with being overweight and how so much shaming can come with a situation like that, it's the same now that I have to eat only what God made. That has to be my diet because of my health. There's just as much shaming in that. You know what I'm saying? And so the psychological piece doesn't go away on either side. You know what I'm saying? So now you've changed your diet, but in America that's not acceptable. I was in the restaurant just yesterday. Everything in the restaurant, the kitchen chef had to come out and say, you can't eat anything here. And they gave me avocado and some bell pepper, some peppers and onions, and they created with tomatoes. That was all I could have. That was all I could have.
And it's a
That's
shame
sad.
that you can't it's challenging. I'm not saying you can't go out to eat, but it's very challenging to go out to eat and find real food that hasn't been doctored so much that it's really unhealthy for you to eat.
But there's psychology to that too, because I mean, as we're talking about this, Edie, and your journey, in addition to when the doctor said that to you and your that aha went off, the commitment seems to have come right there. Wait, I'm looking at my mom, I'm looking at my grandmother, I'm looking at myself, something's happening here that I need to change, you know? I guess regardless of whatever you're going through, that when that aha happens, you've got a shot, right? Because something just changed in the mind that will help you to, I think the last time we talked about how you get the motivation to get up and go do something. Now it wasn't just about how good and how comforting the food was, it was about, like you said, how many years am I gonna be here if I don't change something?
Right. So I think I've mentioned before, people don't change unless there's loss or pain. And in this instance, it was a loss of being able to do what you wanted to do, and the pain of knowing that I might have to be on medications like my mom for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Because, I mean, you didn't get a therapist for your journey, did you?
No, I didn't. I educated myself first. Then I taught myself how to eat properly, within reason. Portion control was first. That's what Weight Watchers helped me with. Taught me portion control.
Did you go to Weight Watchers?
I did the online.
Did you?
And it taught me, if anything else, because back then it didn't necessarily teach you how to eat whole, real foods. It did teach you, it taught me portion control. Once I learned that, then because I was educating myself on how to eat real food, whole foods, then I started eating whole, real foods. And then I started feeling better, so I started implementing regular exercise and stayed committed to it. But my loss was, I'm so career-minded and just active on the go. My body started breaking down for the first time in my life, the early 40s. I was always able to eat whatever I wanted, you know, and I started having these coughing attacks. And then I started having those symptoms, the high cholesterol, just feeling sluggish, slowing down. I was traveling a lot. I wasn't able to keep up with some of the younger. And that's where I was like, you know, I could feel my body just breaking down, where I'd never really felt that before, where I was like, okay, this is, my body's not, it's fighting back.
Right.
So what is the body fighting for? Is it fighting for a return of what was, or is it fighting for, because the nutrition that you were currently receiving wasn't, what was your body fighting?
It was just not able to maintain what I was feeding it. It just, I was not taking care of it properly. So it was fighting it back. I mean, you can only abuse it so long before it's like, okay, either you change or else you're gonna start having some major issues. And so it was giving me some major signs, and I decided to pay attention to it. You know, either that or you start masking it with drugs.
Or something else?
Yeah, we see that a lot where people's bodies starts breaking down. You know, we age ourselves by not giving ourselves proper nutrition. You know, I mean, if you go all the way down to the mitochondria of your cells, that needs food. You know, that needs nutrition. That's where a lot happens for us nutritionally. Okay, and where she was able to educate herself and to slowly start making changes, gradually implementing these into her lives. There are a lot of people who aren't able to do that. It becomes so overwhelming.
So
It's
give
so
me your
challenging.
best tips, because I know you've helped so many people with weight loss and
Right.
through therapies. What are some of your best tips? Because I'm lucky that I was able to do it without
Right.
therapy. What are some of your best tips to make this a lifelong drug? Because I feel like I'm almost like a drug addict with food. Like I could rebound, like I could go back
Yeah.
into
Eating
any day now. So what are best tips?
Well, you have to know your why.
Mhm.
Just like we do with a lot of things. Know why you're doing this.
And that was that aha when the doctor.
Right. Yeah, know your why. Secondly, don't try to make all these changes all at one time. it's just not possible. Like you started on portion control first. That's perfect. Start on portion control. Start slowly, gradually changing from eating fake foods to eating more real foods, and just slowly moving into that. And you can change one habit each week. So if you drink 6 Cokes a day, even if it's Diet Coke, it's terrible for you, then you can start 1 week, cut it down to 4 a day. The next week, cut it down to 2 a day. The next week, cut it out altogether and substitute water or something else, tea, beer, stuff like that. So just gradually making these slow steps. You know, people look at me and they look at how I eat, and they're like, oh, I wish I could eat like that. And I'm like, it took me years. Don't think you're going to eat like this tomorrow.
Right.
You
And
know?
being intentional
It's gradual.
and being purposeful and having an accountability partner.
Can be really helpful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Having somebody that, and so that's one of the reasons why Weight Watchers works so well. First of all, they have great nutritional, and I'm not trying to put a plug in for them, but they do have a good nutritional basis.
Yeah.
But they also have that accountability where you're checking in with people, either online with your own plan or checking in with people like at meetings and stuff. But they're not the only place, okay? So several other places do the same thing, have great nutritional basis, and some people really like that accountability to be helpful. For those people, and maybe we need to have a conversation about people who are on the other end of the spectrum, who have eating disorders that require psychiatric care, because that's big too. So we have people who overeat for emotional reasons and they need help. We have people who overeat just because it's cultural and it's part of their family pattern, and lack of information. And we really need to have a revolution in our country about eating.
That's true, because
So.
in this country, there are things I can eat that would darn near kill me.
Yeah.
Being served at restaurants and places all the time. I can leave this country and eat those same bread. I can leave this country and eat a lot of the very same things. In other places, it wouldn't bother me at all.
One of the
That's
things
it.
that, when I lived in Germany and I would buy broccoli at the market, it had been picked a day or two before, but we had to eat it within 2 days.
Yeah.
I could buy broccoli here and leave it in my refrigerator for 2
Looks
weeks
the
and
same.
it looks kind of the same.
Yeah.
You know,
You know
even
that
though
with
it's
most of your
organic and you're like, okay, you should think that.
GMOs.
Yeah, but I mean, just so much
Genetically
changes.
modified.
And, yeah, so
So sad.
there's so many things that we need to keep in mind when it comes to eating, but there's one that I like to share. It's a Michael Pollan quote, and it says, eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. And if you can follow that little guideline, eat real food, mostly plants, lots of vegetables and fruits, and not too much, you'll find that your weight will stay at a pretty steady rate and you'll be relatively healthy. You don't have to do fad diets and you don't have to count calories and you don't have to do all this fancy calculations of things online. Just eat real food, not too much, and mostly plants and not too much.
That's easy. That's an easy plan. I know it doesn't sound easy if you're not, if you were
You're
like
not
me.
doing it's a challenge.
Yeah, if you're
Right.
like me where I was stopping the fast food for breakfast, after work,
And that's a whole
All
other
weekend.
It
conversation.
is
What's
too.
in fast food and all the chemicals and
That's
things
why they
that
go
they
fast.
that they
I can't
do
do
to it to make it taste good
Yeah.
and to mass produce it.
Yeah.
It's not even food by the time you get it.
That's
it's
true.
a food-like product.
Well,
Or
even
what's called
cereal.
fake food, or
Yeah.
Mark Harmon calls them freaking foods,
Yeah.
Yeah.
including cereal. So, yeah.
So what would you say, Evie, to someone watching this who is trying to make that decision that they want to lose weight, but they don't really know how? First, they can get in touch with Gwen, and Gwen can surely guide them through the process. But you tell them something that where you were and where you are today and what's different, so that they can be motivated and inspired by your story.
So the last time I actually weighed myself, I think when I was at the doctor's, I was 180 something. I can't remember exactly. I was in the 180. I'm sorry, 280
Wow.
something. I was pushing 300 pounds. Right now I'm about 150.
Wow.
So-
That's half of
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do that?
It probably took me about 3 years to get down to my lowest. I go between, you know, I'll a 10-pound range, you know, but it took me, like Gwen said, it was a gradual process, and I think people need to understand, I didn't go from surviving on fast food and chips to, you know, eating primarily good food. It overnight. That does not, and working out 4 to 6 times a week. I work out 4 to 6 times a week. That did not happen overnight, and I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They see what people like me are doing now, and they think they have to do it all at once.
They're looking at the goal, the bullseye, and
Yes.
they become overwhelmed.
And they become overwhelmed and they like stop. So I think primary is get your eating first under control. Get the portions under control. Start eating the right foods that aren't going to make you fiend for more foods, the addictive foods, like Gwen was saying. And educate yourself. You have to educate yourself, because if someone else is telling you, oh, I had someone tell me this morning, oh, carbs aren't bad for you. You can, it's okay for you to eat all. Well, yeah, you can eat some carbs, but make sure that they're good carbs.
Right.
And then it's about who's influencing you too, because you could listen to that and you could feel bad about, it could go either way.
Right.
So, you know, you gotta know what's in your ear also. So there's some mental toughness to all of this too. So do you recommend that if someone is in a situation where they're wanting to have a life change, just like with trauma and anything else, don't you say that getting a support person like yourself would be the best walk for someone?
Yeah, I think getting a support person is really important. It doesn't have to be a psychotherapist though.
Okay.
I think if it's pulling up a lot of stuff for you, as you start trying to make changes or you're unable to get yourself moving in that direction, yeah, a psychotherapist could be really helpful. But
So
maybe you
who-
just need a buddy. Maybe you just
who would need a psychotherapist?
Like someone who uses their food to soothe their emotional distress. And when they try to start making changes, they can't manage their emotions because they've always used it as a coping skill. Okay? Or people who use restricting food as a coping skill. I have this strong need to be in control. And so this brings me my safety. This is the only thing that I do in my life that creates safety for me, so I'm just not going to eat. And so we have those scenarios. It's very trauma oriented.
So are those people that deal with like anorexia and bulimia, those types?
Those can do too, and it's sometimes also stress related. Okay, and they just don't know how to manage the stress without the use of food or the absence of food, or something like that. So yeah, doing that. Or if you have a lot of unhealthy thoughts surrounding food, that can be really helpful.
Like what? What would be an unhealthy thought?
That food is more to you than just fuel for your body. That it's like your best friend. Like, this is the only thing that keeps me safe. This is the only thing that I long for. I wake up in the morning and I think about food. I go to bed at night thinking about food. It just kind of consumes you. Okay?
So just kind of addictive behavior that is associated.
And as I tell people all the time, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's all of this is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to respond and to do something different and to go on the journey to do whatever it takes. And sometimes you do need a buddy, sometimes you need professional help, and sometimes you can educate yourself and walk that path on your own. So it's just different for different people. Okay.
So it's your practice, not your perfect, because that's something that I tell myself all the time when I think immediately that I gotta get this done. And then my whole body, my mind, spirit, soul will take on the whole thing right there. And so I have to say, wait, this is my practice, not my perfect. I'm not there yet. And that pushes some of that weight off of me feeling like I gotta get this done. That's why I don't do resolutions, you know what I'm saying? Because it's the same kind of pressure, you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to put that pressure to myself. Great segment.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, I gotta have the pressure on me.
But again,
It's
that's
something
lots
for
of
different
different personality,
personality.
and there's a lot to learn about setting goals. There's a
Yeah.
lot to learn about monitoring your goals,
Mhm.
making them reasonable, not going head first into
Mhm.
trying to make everything work. So much to go through, but
She's my yin to my, she's my yin to my yang.
Yes, but I mean, it's different. So if it's a work project, that's different.
Mhm.
If it's something that I'm having a problem with and I'm looking at it personally,
Mhm.
I will say, wait, we're not gonna take all of this at one time, so that I can kind of give myself some time to, you know, progress into that thing. So that's the way.
probably step number one is for anybody to understand their relationship with food
Mhm.
before they decide what they need to move forward.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong journey, that's for sure.
It is.
So even
it
after
is.
you lose the weight, you don't stop.
No.
You gotta maintain.
No.
It's a lifestyle
It's a
change.
lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle change.
It certainly has been for me, and it's not even the weight piece, it's the just eating to live so that I can, so that both works both ways.
Right.
Great segment, guys.
So one more thing, how can people get a hold of you? Where can they go to find you?
You can find me online under brainpsychotherapy.com. You can go to the Center for MindBodyHealth.org. Both of those websites have our work phone number on there. You can email me personally at brain, BREHM.Gwen, GWEN@ATT.net. Please say that you saw me on the Brush Lounge, so I'll know to open that email and check in. But anything you need, I'm here to help you, guide you. If I'm not here, if I'm not your person to work with, hopefully I can guide you in the right direction.
She's gonna be here so that we can become, so we can create some kind of a personable relationship within the lounge, so that we can feel comfortable going to get help of any kind. So you'll see. But and then also Gwen's information is in the lounge. You can click and it'll take you directly to where she's going to be.
Thank you.
Wow, ladies, thanks so much. This has been another episode in the Brush Lounge. We promised you we'd come back and talk about Evie's food journey, and we've done it. So now, thank you so much for joining us, and join us again real soon on The Brush.